Were largely invisible, and when they were visible, they were largely segregated. Special bus, special school, special workplace, and so on.
So when I was diagnosed with psoriasis and told that there was no cure, it was just an affirmation to me of all those lies that I had always told myself. That I wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, healthy enough, not good enough.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Dylan, mate, are you sure that's not Ryan Gosling? But unfortunately, no, this is a photo of me.
So one Saturday morning, they sat down at our kitchen table and had a family discussion. And they talked about my face and about my legs and talked about whether they should bring me home. And my parents gave my brothers and sisters a vote. And they asked, should we bring Robert home? And one by one, my brothers and sisters said yes.
A series of realisations that led me from an unhealthy perspective of us and them to one of inclusion and positivity.
About 4 years ago, I was hidden inside a body inflamed, covered in red, itchy, flaky, angry, psoriasis.
Also, secondly, where the hell are my eyebrows? Now, unfortunately for me, I didn't grow any eyebrows till I was 17 years old. Now, I understand that I had completely no control over that, but as you could imagine, it wasn't really helping my cause, was it? I also had braces. I also had my bed in the pantry, and I was a little bit on the overweight side.
And when they did, they started to notice people's reactions. And it's quite funny. In terms of participation in society, it's probably the fact that I have no legs that has more of an impact than my face. But people who meet me for the first time often don't even realise I have prosthetics.
We also started to be buried under other people's assumptions about disability, as if our own weren't enough. The crux of that phase of our lives post-diagnosis was that we entered what I think of as fix-it mode.
You know what I'm talking about? The stuff that just makes us cringe. Stuff we can't stand about ourselves. It's that personality dirt we would rather just, let's sweep that under the rug. Shit, how about we light it on fire? So we don't want any chance of recovery here.
And this was really the first time in my life that I was really struggling with my disability.
We are judged on our faces.
Hell would actually be losing our little girl, and that no one had died, just an idea had died.
What are your ugly bits? Why is he feeling like he may not be good enough?
Up until this age, I'd never really cared about the fact that I was in a wheelchair.
Now, my dad was a gambling man, and he did not like those odds. He started arguing with my mum and my doctors and said, why would we risk our son dying? Why would we risk him dying at that high a chance just for pride of appearance, as he called it? Now, my mum, I think, understood better the importance of appearance and at least having something a bit more normal of an appearance when you're growing up. And so they argued back and forth for months, and they went back and forth to the doctors with questions about the risks and could it be mitigated and getting a sense of what it would mean.
I realised that no one needs to feel broken, especially not a child.
We let the ugly bits rule our lives. I propose that learning to love our ugly bits is the key to letting go of what's holding us back so we can live extraordinary lives.
And it was also about the first time that I really thought about myself as being weird because I had a disability. And to be honest, that really sucked. And it had a big effect on absolutely everything that I did.
Jake the Peg, Pinocchio, which didn't make any sense because his nose grew, Stumpy, retard, and a quite specific and actually pretty awful toe nose. And, you know, those were the sorts of things that stopped me being comfortable with my face.
Disability is a natural part of the human experience. There's always been people with disability, and there always will be. It's perfectly natural for human beings to be diverse. It's what makes us strong and interesting and vital.
The day that I walked out of the dermatologist's office with a red box under my arm, tears streaming down my face, I knew that I had to change. This was where I was supposed to deposit my needles after injecting my daily treatment. And even though I had poisoned my own body for so long, it just didn't make sense to me. And I can't even tell you why I felt this way at the time, but I knew that the change had to come from here. I knew that I had to heal from the inside out.
And I remember thinking to myself, that is bullshit. Like, I'm actually really good friends with this guy. Like, how could I not be invited to his party?
And my brother was there listening in, and we talked about the opportunities and the risks, and he stayed silent the entire time until we brought up the fact the operation could cost me my eyesight. And he then piped up and said, "What use is it being pretty if he can't even see himself?" In that instant, I owned my face. Until then, my life had been governed by my appearance, but I'd never had much say in that. Decisions were made about the fate of my face by my parents, by my doctors, by social workers, by kids teasing me, and the comment from my brother made me realise that I had a choice and I could actually own my face by exercising that choice.
Happiness, health, growth, education, travel, meaningful employment, community contribution, friends, family, love, home, belonging. To put it another way, like most of you with your children, I believe my daughter could be the Prime Minister of this country.
I watched the majority of the skin on my body completely regenerate. And in its place, new skin.
The far more badass thing to do was simply turn up and jump the fence. Now, as you could imagine, jumping, it's not really my forte. And unless I had some kind of crane or like trampoline device, there was no way in hell that I was getting over that fence. So the only way to get in was to knock on the door and go through the front. Anyway, I sat at home and I'm like, you know what, stuff it. I'm gonna go, see what happens. I got to the front door, I knocked on the door, and my mate answered.
I didn't figure I'd necessarily ever be worth painting, but I was done with being the doctor's canvas. I think it was the right decision. I'm pretty sure it was. I kind of think that if they'd made me look a bit more normal, I'm never going to look perfectly normal, and there's always that bit of dissonance.
When I meet a woman with less mobility than my daughter and more reliance on a speech-generating device, who's practicing as a lawyer, I believe in possibility. When I meet a young man who has Down syndrome, who's the CEO of his own motivational speaking business, and he calls the people who support him his staff, not his carers, I believe in possibility. When I hear of a young woman with Down syndrome in Spain who's been elected to local government, I believe in possibility.
When my skin was at its worst, I would stand in the shower and I would scratch until blood cascaded down my legs in waterfalls. It got worse before it got better. And then I started to see patches of brand new skin. Simple, miraculous proof that we can come back from damn near anything if we acknowledge our part in the process.
Anyway, he looked at me and he said, "Dill, mate, I'm so glad that you came. I just didn't know if you could get in my house because I had a couple of stairs, so I didn't invite you."
And it refers to this idea that as artificial faces become more normal looking and more realistic, they become that little bit more off-putting, because we can tell the difference between Daffy Duck and a CGI creation, and that CGI creation just looks that little bit wrong.
Is that no matter how much we value our child for who she is, our culture mostly won't. This could be you or someone you love today, tomorrow, Any day, any time, any place, any income, any lifestyle. Disability knows no bounds.
For years, I refused to take any responsibility for the role that I played in my own condition. I mean, the autoimmune response that visibly showed up as psoriasis, it couldn't have had anything to do with my alcohol-guzzling, cigarette-sucking, fast food lifestyle, right?
So anyway, I went in that house party, absolutely crushed it, had an awesome time. And then I remember the next day I woke up and I was really bloody mad at myself. I was really mad at myself that I let my insecurities and my embarrassment about my disability dictate the previous year of my life.
And it relates perfectly to notions of ideal beauty. We try to define ideal beauty like it's Mount Everest and that everyone needs to climb it. That's actually wrong. Ideal beauty is much better when we think about it as a million different points on the map.
Take a moment to imagine life without community. Social exclusion is a human rights issue, and inclusion is no different to other human rights movements that have come before.
I used to dread going out in public. I covered myself from head to toe, terrified that someone would see the spots on my face, the flakes in my hair, or the irritated rashes that crept down the back of my neck.
I was really mad at myself that I believed this negative stigma that having a disability makes you weird and makes you different. And that's the only reason that people don't want to hang out with you. I'm really mad at myself that I didn't just grow a set of balls and have some confidence and talk to my friends and educate them about my disability.
Because it's the choices that matter. And funnily enough, my ugliness made it easier for me to own my face than many of you. But we all face choices every day. I had one choice when I was 14 about one aspect of my face, and I exercised that choice, and it has governed how I looked for the rest of my life.
Or a hero is suffering or afflicted, has the mind of a child, is a burden on society or their family, is dependent, won't amount to much, needs a cure or prevention, belongs with their own kind. Have you ever assumed that someone who communicates in a unique way has nothing to say?
But you'd be surprised at how people actually love you more for your flaws. Because guess what, everybody? They have them too.
Then after that night, I made a pact with myself. I made a pact with myself to never, ever let my disability get in the way of what I wanted to do. I made a pact with myself to not be scared of my disability, but to be rather embrace it in everything that I did. And because of that, I've been able to live a truly, incredibly awesome life.
But we all make choices every day to shave, to wear makeup, and if so, how much, to wear piercings, to bleach our lip hair, all of those kinds of things. And those sorts of things are what give us entry to the tribes we want to enter.
In true community, people aren't burdens, they're assets. They're members. Their own kind is humankind. That's us. And we belong together in community. That's who we are at our best. And we don't need to cure diversity, we need to enjoy it, because it's awesome.
Now I'm going to tell you all a story about the one element that I believe ties all this together. And that's unconditional love.
The para actually represents parallel, meaning the Paralympics runs parallel or alongside the Olympics. Same gold medals, same venues, same elite athletes, same time. The only difference is obviously we all have disabilities at the Paralympics. Lost limbs to cancer, other guys that had horrific accidents on their work sites and were left up in wheelchairs. Other guys that had car crashes and never be able to walk again and lost loved ones in the process. To sit on top of that podium and so proud of what we had done, singing that national anthem with tears in our eyes, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. It really was incredible, and it's something that I'll cherish forever.
Choosing to dress like a goth is exactly the same choice as looking like a bearded hipster. It's just a different decision.
Let's imagine if a label for some attribute that you have, let's say baldness or an interesting nose, was added to your name and mentioned every time you were mentioned. Let's imagine that that attribute was something that most people value in a negative way.
And I looked up at my boyfriend at the time, still to this day, such an angel in my life. And I said, how can you love me? How can you love me like this? How can you look past it? He looked straight into my soul and he said, I can't look past something I can't see.
I've also got a bit of a name for myself as the dude that crowd surfs in his wheelchair at festivals. Now, I've been very lucky to travel around the world attending a bunch of different music festivals.
Choose to accept your face. Choose to appreciate your face. Don't look away from the mirror so quickly. Understand all the love and the life and the pain that is part of your face.
Ooh, what have the doctors said about your nose? Can they fix that? It's rhinoplasty, isn't it, when they... Yeah, oh, it's such a shame because the rest of your face is so pretty. At least you've still got your own hair.
It is my deep hope that all of you, can come to love all of yourselves.
I'm so glad that I could challenge my own perception about what I thought about disability. And to be honest, I can sit here in front of you all today and tell you 100% honest truth. If I ever had the chance to go back in time or eat some kind of magic pill and walk again, there's no way in hell you could ever pay me enough to do it. Because I absolutely love everything that's involved in my life, wheelchair or not, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
But I looked at this portrait, disturbed, voiceless, silent, crying, because it seemed to me that Nick had gone and owned my face for me. It seemed like this portrait captured every piece of pain, every bit of life I had felt since I was 14.
Disability remains this thing that nobody really wants to talk about. And there's still this negative stigma that having this disability is this weird, unlucky, really ugly thing.
Are there ways that you're going about the business of being you that's excluding people? And are there ways that you can do the business of being you that includes more people?
But when the hell do you ever hear anything about disability? Or when do you ever turn on the TV and see the first news story about somebody with a disability? Or when do you turn on your TV and see a wheelchair TV presenter? Sorry, a presenter in a wheelchair. Or somebody with cerebral palsy in our parliaments. Or an actual blind actor playing a blind actor, as opposed to some bloke who's just closing his eyes.
And I think the important thing there is plenty of other people will try to own our faces, but have they put a million brushstrokes into owning our faces?
I think it's really important moving forward that we as a society change our perception of disability away from this idea that it's this really bad, unlucky, weird thing, and stop being so scared to talk about it.
How are you portraying disability in your language, in your classrooms, in your workplaces, in your home, with your children, in the media? Is it honest, and does it use positive role models? Or does it use cliches, negativity, us and them?
Get people with disabilities into our mainstream media, and that will increase the visibility in a positive light. We need to make disability heaps more commonplace.